So why do Harleys rev so slow compared to all the other motorcycle motors out there, including, say, Ducati V-twins, Moto Guzzis, BMWs? Well, the same could be said, why does the V8 motor, you know, an old big block or small block American-made motor, compared to today's small, inline, usually Japanese motors? Well, there's a reason for that. Now, let me first say I retired from the motorcycle industry like 20 years ago. So some of my figures might be a bit dated. Forgive me, but the premise is the same, the fundamental rules, if you will. It all comes down to metallurgy. Now, a Harley, if I'm still, if I haven't fallen too far behind the times, its red line is 5,250 RPM. I doubt that's gone up much. I could be wrong. You can get different rev limiters for them. I think you can wind them up. I wouldn't rev them past 6,000, but anyways. This is again because of the metallurgy. It all comes down to the piston speed. And it is measured in, is it feet or meters per second? Oh dear. I know there's quite a gross disparity there. Someone in the comments correct me. I'll use meters per second. The piston can only change direction so fast, given its mass, because of the metallurgy. It'll stretch the rod, it'll pull the piston boss out of the piston will keep going, and the boss and the rod will turn around. You can only spin something so fast on its given mass. And again, I'm going to use meters per second. So sometimes you hear the term over square bore. What has happened over the last few decades in motors, particularly in motorcycles, is the stroke, the length of the distance that the piston travels, has shortened, and the bore has become wider. So, the Jap bike, might have a stroke this long, whereas the Harley's got a stroke this long, but they are confined to that meters per second speed and the ability for the metallurgy to stand up to the directional changes and forces in the reciprocating piston. So that's why a long stroke Harley compared to a short stroke high revving Japanese motorcycle, that's what that's all about. It again comes down to metallurgy. So what allowed us to make faster revving motors? Well, that comes down to the bore being bigger again. It comes down to our understanding of burning the fuel faster, which is a whole nother subject matter again. It comes into electronically timed pre-programmed maps on the ignition system rather than points and bob weights to advance the timing. Comes down to some extent, well, arguably a considerable extent, fuel injection. Remember the term Hemi? The Dodge and Plymouth Hemi motors referred to a hemispherical combustion chamber. And, well, I'm not going to get too far into that. Today's Hemi is a misnomer. It's not a Hemi motor. It's just a decal on the side of the car. But I digress. This is why we often have dual plug heads to start two flame propagation centers. As this bore is a whole lot wider, the flame propagation has to spread across a considerably bigger distance, again in less time as the motor spins faster. So whether you had any interested in that or not, that's what that's all about.